Okay, we are live, folks, here with Dr. Rick Saccone, who is the GOA endorsed candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Rick.
Well, thanks for having me. Just happy to be on.
Hey, it's great to have you. It's great to have you. We got a lot to talk about tonight. First, I want to just give you, give everybody just a little bit of background about, Pennsylvania, what's going on right now. I would say that this is probably one of the most important elections, gubernatorial, lieutenant governor elections that we've had in a very long time. We have had 8 years of abject tyranny under Governor Tom Wolf. I mean, you name it. He vetoed every gun control bill we put on his desk. He's promised to veto the one that strengthened the firearms preemption bill. That one is supposed to be, on his desk now. I'm sure in a few days. He's gotten thousands of messages. He'll just ignore them, and he'll veto that. He vetoed constitutional carry. He vetoed a couple of bills that were related to correcting some deficiencies in the law regarding firearms carrying during states of emergency, where the governor could regulate that. He vetoed that last session. And then we've had the absolute tyrannical edicts which shut down gun stores and ranges during the COVID-19 pandemic. So people are really fed up with it. And now we're faced with somebody even worse coming down the pike, Josh Shapiro, he's really just a poster child of gun control and a mouthpiece for every town, and Michael Bloomberg. But anyhow, Rick, your reputation kind of precedes itself in the Pennsylvania legislature as a state representative. And I just want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. You have a military background, and what you did in the military. You had some really, really unique things that you did. And then let's talk about your time as a state representative and how you were a champion of the Second Amendment there.
Yes, thank you. Of course, I'm born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, and I joined the United States Air Force right out of high school as an enlisted man because I loved airplanes, and I wanted to fix airplanes. I wanted to be around airplanes, and that's what I did. I was an aircraft mechanic, and even as a young airman, I saw the fraud, waste, and abuse in the Department of Defense, and I put in a suggestion on how to save some money for the Air Force, and it went Air Force wide, and I got a cash award for that. And even President Carter at that time sent me a letter thanking me for my good citizenship and so forth. So even as a young man, I saw when I tried to fix problems that were going wrong. And later on, I decided to join the investigative branch of the Air Force, known as OSI, and because I started off as a fraud investigator, and I uncovered millions and millions of dollars of large contract fraud in a lot of the the Grummans and all the big contractors, Northrops, and all those kinds of things. I was working against that, and then I went into the counterintelligence, counterespionage realm, and that's how I really excelled in that. And I was working overseas mostly against our adversaries, and it was just a great career. I really enjoyed it. I made a lot of good friends. I got to do a lot of things that most people will only see about in movies and so forth. It was wonderful. And I left the military, and I came back home to finish my PhD at the University of Pittsburgh and teaching at St. Vincent College, political science and international relations. And I was having a great time doing that. And I got a call to go to North Korea. I spent a lot of time in Korea, most of my military career, and I did a lot of other things there. I was a new educational broadcast station newscaster and did some other things in Korea. I was on PBS with Michael Palin's show as his guide around Korea. So I did a lot of things. So when they needed someone to go to North Korea, and I'd written at that time, I think 7 books about Korea, total of 10 books I've written. And they asked me, hey, we're having some trouble with the North Koreans. We need someone to go up there as an international diplomat and work with them. Would you be willing to go? And you know what? It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. I couldn't take my wife, but I went, and I really learned about North Korea from the inside and was able to negotiate with them and work with them successfully. And so I came back after a year of that. I wrote 2 books about it because I wanted to share that experience on how to actually deal with the North Koreans, because they are a very different country, different system, different from almost anything in the world. And I wanted to share what I learned about that. So I went back to teaching at St. Vincent. Of course, the war in Iraq had broken out, 9/11. I was in North Korea when 9/11 happened. So I came back after that, and the war in Iraq broke out, and I got a call and said, hey, you were in counterintelligence, counterespionage, we're having some trouble, and would you be willing to go to Iraq as a civilian and help work the counterintelligence system there? And I said, you know what, I wanted to fight terrorism, I wanted to be on the tip of the spear, so I decided to go to Iraq and work there. And I got there, I got to Baghdad, and they said, that's just when they were having all that trouble at the Abu Ghraib prison and all the scandals and things going on. They said, well, Rick, nobody wants to go over there to Abu Ghraib. Do you think you go over there and try to straighten that place out? So I did. I went over there and worked at straightening out that situation from a counterintelligence perspective. But I wasn't there long because an insurgent walked in our dining hall in Mosul and blew himself up. You might remember this, and killed 23 Americans and injured 60. And they said we were trying to take back the city of Mosul at that time, and it was terrible. And they said, Rick, you're doing a great job down here in Baghdad, but we want you to go up to Mosul and try to straighten that out. So I went to Mosul, and we did. We straightened that place out, and I actually developed a vetting program. We had 10,000 people on 2 bases there, 4,000 of which were foreign workers. So I had to develop a vetting system to stop people from coming in and killing us. And so we did. We vetted those people, and we went from the worst security situation in Iraq to the best.
Great.
And I got a letter of meritorious service for that. And I came home and I wrote a book about it. And and then I went back to teaching at St. Vincent. And then I decided to, people started getting on me and said, well, why don't you go? We're having a terrible time in Harrisburg with Governor Rendell and all the bad budgets and vetoing all the bills and tax increases. Why don't you go do something? You're teaching this stuff. Why don't you go do something about it? So I decided to run for the legislature, and I did. And it happened to be in a 76% Democrat district. So very little chance of, there'd never been a Republican in that seat before. So my wife and I knocked on 18,000 doors, and we barely won, but we won. And I was elected 4 times. By the time my 3rd and 4th election, I was winning with 70% of the vote. So people appreciated what we were doing. It took a lot of Democrats to vote for me to get me in, but we were able to reach across the aisle and do that. And then of course, I ran for Congress against Connor Lamb. Some people remember that.
I do remember that. Very narrow election.
Yeah, national election. President Trump came out and did a rally for me. Ivanka came out. Don Jr. came out. It was great. And of course, at the last minute, they found a bunch of absentee ballots, and I lost by 600 votes out of 200,000 cast. So I just retired, basically, kept teaching, and I opened the Constitution and Godly Heritage Discovery Center right here in Elizabeth. It's a wonderful facility where we teach about the founding and the founding fathers, and we feed you. My wife feeds you. You come through. We tour the place. We talk about what you saw, and everyone has a great time. We have lots of groups come, civic groups, patriotic groups, church groups, all kinds of people come that want to learn about our Constitution and our godly heritage. And then I said, I'm watching Wolf and the terrible things that are going on in Harrisburg, and I'm like, I have to come. I can't sit by and watch this happen. As I said, I'm a veteran, but not only am I a veteran, I come from a family of veterans. 4 generations of veterans. My grandfather served in World War I. My father's a D-Day veteran in World War II. I served a full career in the Air Force. Both my sons are now serving overseas. And so we've spent our lifetime defending our freedoms, and I see our freedoms under attack here, right here at home in Pennsylvania. And so I came out of retirement to run for lieutenant governor and set this state back on track. And then I promise I'll retire to my Mount Vernon like George Washington, and you probably won't hear from me for a while.
You've had no doubt you've had a distinguished career in the military and in public service. So let's talk a little bit about that. Your time as a state representative. What year did you enter the state legislature? What year did you leave?
Yeah, from 2010 to 2018.
Okay.
And we came in just the end of the Rendell terror, and we came in Corbett. We came in the same time as Corbett. And it was great. We thought we were going to get a lot of things done. I thought for sure I'm going to Harrisburg, where all of the people there are altruistic and genuinely want to help our state. And there's got to be a higher caliber of people, and we're going to get a lot of things done. But we did get many things done. But I found that there were a lot of people there that weren't of high caliber, and there were a lot of people that were there for the wrong reasons, and there were a lot of obstacles to getting things done in Harrisburg. And so it was a constant battle. But we still accomplished many things. But the Second Amendment was one of those things that was very important to me, because I actually ran on the Second Amendment. One of the number 1 and number 2 issues in my district were the Second Amendment and property tax reform. And at that time, you might remember, we had duty to retreat in Pennsylvania. So you had to literally surrender your home.
Right.
If somebody broke in, you run out the back door.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit in order. Let's talk about first, constitutional carry. We had Senate Bill 565, which was Chris Dush, who was our prime sponsor. We also had Aaron Bernstein in the House, HB 659 this time. This is the first time in history that we actually passed this and got it to the governor's desk where he vetoed it. However, you have the distinction, Rick, of being the first legislator in Pennsylvania to carry the constitutional carry bill. And tell us about that. What year was it, and what was your strategy?
Yeah, I think it was 2013 I first introduced it. It's funny because bills take a long time to get through. Some bills take a long time to get through the legislature. It can take, I saw bills took 8 or 10 years to get through there because good ideas often don't catch on. It takes a while, especially in Pennsylvania. We're often the last state to pass certain bills. So many states are ahead of us. Well, I wanted us to be first. And I introduced constitutional carry. Plenty of time we could have been a leader on this bill. And I kept pushing it, and I kept speaking at all the rallies every year and trying to push it. And we always got the excuse, we don't have enough votes. We don't have enough votes. I believe we did, but because of the leadership, we couldn't get it through. But I kept pushing it because it is a good bill. And other states started passing it one by one. I forget how many we're up to now, maybe 23, 24 states have passed it. And people are starting to catch on and see that hey, this is a good bill. And so now we finally passed it. And I'm hoping that I'll be in the executive branch when we sign that bill into law, and it'll have come full circle. It'll have been my bill when it started, and then we'll sign it into law when I'm up in the executive branch.
And this is how in GOA we reserve an A+ for people who just don't vote right, but an A+ person is someone who carries a bill as a prime sponsor and then is the champion of it. And you truly were the champion of constitutional carry. I mean, I saw your speeches at the annual Harrisburg rally in May and June, whenever it is, and speaking inside the rotunda regarding constitutional carry and trying to push for that. You've had other successes in the legislature where you were very instrumental in getting pro-gun legislation passed, and this speaks to your experience. Talk about a little bit for your work on Castle Doctrine. How did you help get that passed? That was like a crown jewel of achievement back in 2010, I believe, right?
It's right. 2011 we passed it. My first year in office. I had ran on Castle Doctrine. So as I was knocking on those 18,000 doors, what I was hearing from people was they didn't even know we didn't have the Castle Doctrine. They thought we already had it. No, I'm like, no, we don't. And I'm gonna make sure we get it. And I thought, if I don't do this, I won't run again. I am totally dedicated to passing the Castle Doctrine. Our people need it, and they want it. And so I dedicated myself to passing that. And of course, a lot of other legislators, had to vote for that too. But I lobbied hard. I worked hard. I spoke many places about it. I spoke at many gun clubs and many other places to try to get the people behind us to rally the public support for that bill. And they had tried to pass it before several times, and they couldn't. And actually, my opponent, the incumbent at that time, was against it, even though he claimed he was a big Second Amendment guy and a hunter and all that. But he always opposed it because he was trying to get the Philadelphia anti-gun money. And so I lobbied strong and hard for that bill. And when we passed it in 2011, I was just so proud. And I thought to myself, if I accomplish nothing else in the legislature, I don't know how long I'll be here. That doesn't really matter to me. I came here to do this and property tax reform. And if I have done nothing else, it is a crowning achievement. That's something I will be proud of, and I can leave here and say I helped bring the Castle Doctrine. And a copy, that bill signed by Governor Corbett with the signing pen there, and a picture of us sitting at the table in the governor's reception room, hangs in my office right now as I'm looking up at it. As a reminder, it was House Bill 40 then. And right. I'm just very proud of that bill and that accomplishment. That is the kind of crowning thing.
Exactly. But tell us how your work and your experience, what did you do to get that shepherded through the legislature? What was your strategy? How did you assist the prime? I think wasn't Scott Perry the prime sponsor on the bill?
Yes, Scott Perry was the prime sponsor.
So how did you assist Scott Perry? And I know you were very instrumental. Let folks know, because this speaks to your experience and your leadership within Harrisburg as a pro-gun legislator and getting things done. and how to get things done. So how did you shepherd Castle Doctrine through?
So as I said, you can go to Harrisburg and you can vote for something, and that's of course we need that. We need you to vote the right way, but you have to be an advocate for certain things, and you have to bring others. You have to convince others with logic and reason to come to your side. If you don't bring others to the vote, then you're just a bump on the log. And yeah, if you vote right, that's good, but you have to do more than that. And so I set out to speak to as many people, and not just speak to the legislators, which is important, and try to convince them and try to listen to their arguments and why they weren't why. And they had a lot of unfair arguments. I remember one legislator saying, he eventually turned and voted for a Democrat, but he said, "Oh man," he goes, "I have to knock on doors in Philadelphia, and I don't want to get shot. There'll be shooting. There'll be people. There'll be blood in the streets. It'll be like gun smoke if we pass this bill. And I'll be afraid to go up and knock on someone's door. They're going to shoot through the door." And I had to explain to him that's not what the Castle Doctrine was all about. It didn't give anybody the right to blindly shoot through the door at somebody that knocks on the door. And I had to go through that, and I had to try to assuage his fears that this was, and he legitimately thought this was what's going to happen if we passed the Castle Doctrine. Of course, all these things that they thought would happen, the blood will run in the streets and all this kind of stuff. Of course, since we passed it, none of that has happened, and we've had great success with that bill. But at the time, you have to get to these people. You have to talk to them. You have to listen to them, because if you just dismiss their fears and their concerns, then they're going to just get defensive. They're not going to support your bill. And that's been the history of my work in the legislatures, trying to listen to people, trying to address their concerns, and either work on them directly or tell them why what their fear is or their concern has already been addressed. So we did that. And then I also went out and spoke in their districts, and went around speaking at gun clubs and rallies and so forth, so that their people would contact them and say, we want this bill. So they would put pressure on them too, because they've heard me speak about it at a rally or at a gun club or sportsman's thing or a gun bash or something like that they've heard me speak there on it. So I try to hit it from both angles, talk to the legislators themselves and talk to their constituents, so that their constituents would be on board. If their constituents were on board, then they would have to come around too. So, I did my part, maybe more than my part, to try to get it, because it was so important to me. As I said, I put all my cards on the table in that basket, so to speak, of passing this bill. It's do or die. Pass this bill or I'm not, why am I even up here if I can't get that done?
And again, that speaks to experience and leadership and a track record. And this is the kind of thing we look for in Gun Owners of America before we endorse a candidate. Now, in some races, you like for an open seat, you may have two different candidates or multiple candidates, and none of them have held public office before. And that can happen. And so part of our process is we send a survey out to candidates. We try to see where they stand on very important Second Amendment, Article 1, Section 21, and PA, those issues. That's one thing. The other thing that's important is, if the individual was an incumbent or has held office before, what did they do when they were there? Okay, because every 2 years, if you're a rep, or every 4 years, if you're a state senator, I'm for the Second Amendment. Everybody's for the Second Amendment. Even Democrats say this. And just a handful that still are, but most aren't. But they at least pay lip service to it. So the important thing is, when somebody is in the legislature, is what they did. What is their voting record? What is their track record? Right? Did they vote correctly? That's basic. That's baseline. That's what we would expect. The next thing is, did they co-sponsor pro-gun legislation? That's like, and everybody likes to put their name on. It looks good, but still, that's a step above. Then there's the prime sponsor of a like you're a prime sponsor of constitutional carry. That puts you right at the top of the list. You're saying, I'm willing to put this bill. But some, Rick, this as well as I do. Some people file bills at the request of somebody and they just let it sit there, right? They're not a champion. Mm-hmm. But so you're prime sponsor, and then above that is being a champion of the bill that you are the prime sponsor for. And you were a champion for constitutional carry. And even though you were not a champion for Castle Doctrine, you acted as a champion, even though it wasn't your bill, even though you weren't the prime sponsor of the bill. You acted in the way, and you did the things that you were good at, or your experience as a diplomat, your experience in the military, your experience in the legislature itself, reaching across the aisle talking to people who may disagree with you, even people in your own party, on your side of the aisle, they may have objections, reaching to them and talking to them. And this is what we call inside game. GOA, us people on the outside, we can't file a bill, right? We can write one, but we need somebody on the inside. We need a legislator who acts as that champion, acts as that liaison, who's a warrior for the Second Amendment. And you have fulfilled that role. And we saw that in you, and that's why we endorsed you for Congress and why we're endorsing you for Lieutenant Governor. A track record and somebody being a champion is so important. And that's why we're talking about these things. But there's even more, Rick. I could just continue on, and I'm going to. This is not technically a Second Amendment issue, but it's important to a lot of people, and that was semi-automatic hunting. Tell us about that. Tell us about your leadership on that.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually approached by one of my sportsmen's associations and said, Rick, you realize, there's only 2 states left that have not, that we can't hunt with semi-automatic rifles. And Pennsylvania is one of them. And even New York, even Hawaii, even Illinois, you can hunt with semi-automatic, but not a so-called pro-Second Amendment state as Pennsylvania. And I'm like, I didn't even realize that. I'm like, you're kidding me. So I started looking into it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I said, we got to fix that. And so I introduced that bill. I think it was House Bill 366 at the time. And I introduced the semi-automatic. And I got a lot of pushback. Not all sportsmen are for that, by the way. There's some sportsmen say, oh, no, it's one shot, one kill, and we shouldn't have semi-automatics. And so we had to talk about all the different arguments of why we should, have semi-automatic rifles hunting. But the only way I was able to get it through, and the Game Commission wasn't for it either. They were really worried about it. So the way I was able to get that through, first of all, was it was a standalone bill. But like many things in Harrisburg, what happens is you have to be willing to amend your bill to another bill that is definitely going to pass, and then it kind of squeaks in that way. So we with the Game Commission's approval. Well, I finally got their approval. We had a hearing on it, and I talked to the Game Commission about it, and they went, you know what, this is a good idea. And I'm like, thank you, finally. And so we amended that bill to Matt Gobler's air rifle bill, and it got in. That's how it got in. It got in as an amendment to another bill. So originally it was a standalone bill, but I was willing to amend it. Let's get it done. We want to get it done. It doesn't matter if who gets the credit or any of those things. We want to get it done. So we amended it on Matt Gobler's air rifle bill, and it passed. And here we are today. We've got it. We're the last state. We were the last state.
And something that you just said there, Rick, proves something to me. And is that it doesn't matter how we get it done. We just got to get it done. It's an important bill. We have to pass it. And I see that and saw that in you and see that in you. I see that in Representative Bernstein and his attitude about constitutional carry when his bill got stalled by Kerry Benninghoff and we switched to the Senate bill. Bernstein says to me, Val, he says, I don't care. It's the right thing to do. I'll get behind Chris Dush's bill. It just needs to pass. And you said the exact same thing. That is the sign of a leader and a statesman. It's not somebody who's just grandstanding and standing on top of a bill just to make himself look good. Okay, you basically you wanted to get it done because it's the right thing to do, just like Bernstein did, and that's another sign of a champion and a leader, and that's what we look for. And the only way we can really test that, and remember, as I said before, not if there's an open seat, everybody's new, but if somebody has experience in leadership and has been in the legislature and has that track record, in addition to a perfect survey like you did, I mean that is exactly what we're looking for. I mean, because you're really rolling the dice on everybody else. You just don't know. And oftentimes, Rick, you know this, when a bill goes through, sometimes, I mean, this may come to as a shock to people, sometimes it ain't perfect, right? And there was issues with Castle Doctrine when it went through, and you tried to address those issues, right? And one of those things was disparity of force. And now I know Representative Eric DeVanzo in Westmoreland County is trying to fix that now, but you, once again, you were leading the charge on making the Castle Doctrine better into the way it should have been with disparity. First of all, explain disparity of force and what you were trying to fix in Castle Doctrine.
Yeah, we passed the Castle Doctrine, and the debate was terrible. I mean, we had days and days of debate of people again moaning about how the blood was going to run in the streets and on hour after hour, 8 hours a day. I think 3 full days, if I remember right, of debate. It was horrible. Everybody had to get up and say their piece. They knew we were going to be on the cameras and so forth. And so it passed, but it had some flaws in it. And one of them was that you need to see a weapon to feel that you are under serious bodily injury or to be able to use deadly force. And so one of the flaws I wanted to fix, because disparity of force just says, look, if there's a disparity in force, either in number or size. So I'll give you the example. You're in a park. We had a guy testify for us. He's in a parking lot. He's going out from the mall. He's going to his car. He's 66 years old. He has a neck brace on. He's 350 pounds. He's overweight. 3 thugs come up to rob him and carjack him. And they don't have any weapons on them, but there's 3 of them, and they're young kids and they're big guys. And he's not going to fight off these 3 guys. There's no way he's going to do it. They don't have any weapons, but there's a disparity of force there, right? He should be able to defend himself with deadly force, because he does feel the threat of serious bodily injury or death. And so he should be able to draw his weapon and fire and defend himself. So whether it's either number or size, you can use another example. We had, a young lady, she's 5'1", 102 pounds, and a big guy's coming up. He has no weapons, but he's coming up and he's going to maybe rape her or beat her up and rob her. Right. Again, disparity of force in size, that you should be authorized to use deadly force if you feel the threat of, you should be justified in feeling the threat of serious bodily injury or death in a situation like that, where there's that disparity in size in this case. So that's what the bill tries to correct. And I'm glad Eric Devanzo has picked that bill up and is running with it. Because again, even though we had passed the Castle Doctrine and it was kind of settled law, people are they're just so afraid that, we don't want to tinker with it, and we don't want to bring it up again, because then the other side might try to get rid of it or whatever. But that's one of the problems we face in Harrisburg, is we pass bills oftentimes that should have been fixed the first time. Right. And then we spend years correcting 1 or 2 words here or there that we should have done the first time we passed the bill, but we don't, because we're in a hurry to get it through, or we think there's a window of opportunity to pass a bill. And so we don't want to take the time to amend it right or make the changes that are needed, because we just hurry up and get this done while the mood is here. And right. Then we spend years coming back trying to fix the flaws in bills.
And that happened in Virginia with the shall issue. And there was an exemption that was made for restaurants that served alcoholic beverages. And we called it the restaurant ban. And it took, again, like you said, sometimes 7, 8, 9 years, and eventually the restaurant ban was repealed. So things should be addressed up front and corrected in the original bill. But again, this goes back to you being a leader and seeing a deficiency, trying to correct it, moving everything in the right direction. Here's another bill we had. I think it was HB 2398. And the way things work for concealed carry reciprocity is the Attorney General has a pen and decides which states Pennsylvania will have reciprocity with. And you had a bill to make universal recognition of concealed carry. It's not, and remember, folks, Rick carried constitutional carry as the first prime sponsor and championed it. But if the permit system stuck around, this stops shenanigans from our especially current Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who likes to eliminate states for no apparent reason. And this would have made Pennsylvania would have universally recognized concealed carry permits from other states. And that was your bill. Tell us about that, Rick.
Yeah, same thing. So yeah, exactly right. You explained it very well. We had attorney generals that were anti-Second Amendment, and they were dropping states reciprocity agreements. And you said, look, we're going to recognize anybody's right to carry if they're legally allowed to carry in their state, even if we don't have reciprocity with that state. That's what my bill would have done. While they're here, that we're going to recognize that. And we thought we had a lot of support for it. We thought it was a good bill. We didn't quite make it through. No one has picked it up since I left. I'm hoping someone will eventually pick that bill up, and or there's another bill out there that would just change it so that the Attorney General doesn't have that authority, that we find a different way to decide whether we have reciprocity with another state. Either one of those to me would be acceptable, but we have to make those changes. And again, you have to have people that are willing to stand up and advocate, not just drop a bill in there, because a lot of legislators do that. They'll put a bill, they'll introduce a bill, then they can go home and say, I introduced this bill, but they did nothing to move it forward. So yeah, that's right. That's it. They can pound their chest and say they did it. And it's a deception. It's a form of a deception, because they just put the people back home to think they're doing something when they're really not. So we need people that are going to advocate, people that are going to go out on the limb, that are going to make the rounds. They're going to go, even if they have to go around the state speaking on it, into other people's districts and so forth. That's what we need, and that is leadership, and that's what we have to do to push these bills through. And sometimes it takes time. It's not easy to convince, out of 203 people to get 102 to say, okay, I agree with you on that. And you don't want to, I mean, of course you'll take a party line vote if you have to, but I prided myself on my legislation passing either unanimously or nearly unanimously, 1 or 2 votes against it. So most of my legislation, 95% of my legislation, not just Second Amendment things, but other things, passed with full support of everyone in the House. So even those who disagreed with me ideologically on so many things, on the bills that I was running at the time, I was able to convince them that this was a good idea and get them to vote for it. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people to be united on these issues that were important, that I was advocating for, and I was successful in doing that.
Yeah, exactly. That speaks to leadership and the ability to negotiate, the ability to reach across the aisle and to talk to people, not to compromise our rights away. And this is not about compromise. It's about just getting things done. And one other thing that we want to talk about is firearms preemption law, Title 18, Section 6120. The cities of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh continually violate. Right. And there are other municipalities too, but the big offenders, the usual suspects, are Philly and Pittsburgh. We are suing Philadelphia right now over their homemade firearms ban. It's called ghost guns, makes a really scary term, but it's really a ban on homemade firearms, a right that we've enjoyed in this country since before the founding, and they've taken it away. And of course, it's completely illegal for them to regulate firearms in any manner in Philadelphia. And so we have to sue them, and we have to sue them again and again and again and again and again. They know they're going to lose the case, but there's no consequence for these cities. And they also get free legal help from Michael Bloomberg's organization. So this year, we got HB 979 to the governor's desk, which is Representative Dowling's bill that would fix that. It just levels the playing field. That's all it does. It just says, hey, if you cities pass an ordinance and it's illegal, hey, hint, they knew it was illegal when they did it. They have to pay the legal fees and damages. It's only fair, right? And guess what? They can avoid even a penny of legal fees if they don't pass the illegal ordinance to begin with. Wow, what a concept, right? And this came out on the floor in the Senate a couple of days ago when I was watching the debates live. So, and you supported that. I know we had a sort of a misfire when it got attached to a metals bill. There's another attempt at we got it passed, but we got it passed by attaching it to a metals bill, and it violated the single subject rule, which is unconstitutional. And that attempt was thwarted. But this time we got a clean bill to the governor's desk. It's sitting there now. Of course, he's going to veto it. You, Rick, you supported preemption in the House when you were state rep, and tell us how you would support it now.
Yeah, I mean, I supported, I think it was House Bill 80 back then, and I supported it, and I spoke on the floor about it. And that floor speech is on my webpage. If you go to my webpage, www.rick4lg.com, you could see that speech and a number of others. Oh, it's right below us on the screen.
Right.
I didn't even notice that. My light went out here. That's great. No, please go to www.rick4lg.com and go to the drop down that says Man of Action, and you'll see several of my floor speeches. And I made over 200 speeches, but like property tax, Second Amendment issues, pro-life issues. I put some of the highlighted ones up there so people could see that I'm not just making this up. I actually did advocate for these things and actually changed minds. And people, and on the floor, it's funny, on the floor, oftentimes people come to the floor with their minds made up. And so a lot of the floor speeches are just to be on the camera and to document it so that you can go home and show that you did something. But many times, I have to say, I was proud that many times people would come up to me after my floor speech and would say, "You actually changed my mind, Rick." And I'd say, "Really?" And I'd ask them to tell me how, and they would explain how. And I say, "Well, sometimes you're trying to affect it before you come to the floor, obviously in caucus and all, way before that. But sometimes even at the last minute on the floor itself, you can change some hearts and minds." So I was able to do that. Preemption is something very important because we have some terrible local officials that they're gonna put every obstacle and hurdle in the way of those who want to keep and bear arms. And unless someone's able to challenge them and make it painful for them, they're going to do it. So preemption does that, and it makes it harder for them to put obstacles in the way of law-abiding citizens exercising their Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I know you've been a champion of that. I've watched those videos, and I encourage people to go to your website. We have at the bottom here, rickforlg.com, and you can watch the videos. You can donate to Rick's campaign on that site as well. And now I just want to transition, and then we endorsed you for an office, and that office is Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. I've spent 3 years now going to Harrisburg. In the last year and a half, 2 years now, I live in York now. I drive in. We have GOA as a Capitol office across the street, a little physical Capitol office. So I'm in the Capitol a lot. I go to the gallery. I sit in the gallery, the House, the Senate, and a lot of times I watch it too on screen, and I see things. And if I'm a lobbyist, because I'm a registered lobbyist, I see it from a lobbyist perspective. I watch John Fetterman, who's the speaker. Who's the president, who is current lieutenant governor, who acts as, they call him Mr. President, who acts as the president of the Senate, who presides over the Senate. Okay, I watch how, right from the beginning, how he did that job and continues to do that job, or lack thereof, as lieutenant governor. In the House, I see Brian Cutler and how he approaches that job. And then in the Senate, when Fetterman's not there, sometimes Jake Corman will take over, or another experienced senator will take over the chair and preside. John Fetterman has no political experience, and it shows every minute he is in that chair. Every minute, every second that he's up there, as compared, and again, I'm no Jake Corman fan. We're definitely not. Okay. But when you could see the difference when somebody experienced takes that chair and knows what to do with it. In this lieutenant governor race, when we look at the field, I see one person that shines among the rest of the candidates who has that experience, who when takes that chair, is able to run the Senate, because you, Rick, know how things work in the Capitol. You know how bills get through. You know all the shenanigans, the maneuvers, the motions to table, everything else, and you won't be doing a thing like John Fetterman does to the Secretary of the Senate every 10 seconds, every 5 seconds. And she's telling them what to do, and it's like, you, Rick, would be a true leader up there because you understand the process. You have the experience. We spent the last half hour or more going through all the experience, and that makes a big difference. Another thing that I see, Rick, from watching Brian Cutler, from watching Fetterman or Corman, whoever else is filling in for him, is the person in that role has to be fair. That the Speaker Cutler and Fetterman, and as lieutenant governor, can't be biased to one side or the other as the presider. They have to enforce the rules. They have to, and you could see the balance and fairness that has to come out. Okay, and your record in the Senate, I'm sorry, in the House of Representatives, is just that. You are able to reach across the aisle. You're able to talk to people to get things done on the Democratic side. And I see that as, if you're constantly, if you don't know the job and you have to turn to the person next to you, and that consumes everything. And the other thing is, if you're just a blowhard and an advocate, and just want to use the office as a bully pulpit 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Having sat in that chamber many times, I see that there's a dignity, there's decorum in that office and presiding over the Senate. Tell us about that, Rick, your experience and how your experience separates you from the other candidates when you're going to be sitting in that chair as lieutenant governor. Why is Rick Saccone the choice rather than the other? And again, we don't have anything bad to say that these other candidates on the Second Amendment, at least not yet. But we're talking about experience now and why you sitting in that chair are the choice.
Yeah. So remember, really the first job of the lieutenant governor is he has to be ready to take over for the governor if the governor is incapacitated. So you have to ask yourself, when you look at all these candidates, who among them would be able to run this state if they had to step in?
That's a good point.
It's not just presiding over the Senate and running the parole board. It's who would have been able to run this state effectively if the governor was incapacitated for whatever reason, God forbid. So that's really important. And of course, I have the depth and breadth of experience to do that, not only in the legislature, but outside in my life experience, all the things that I've done, and we've talked about a number of them. So that depth and breadth of experience is important. You only get one lieutenant governor, and you want to send the most qualified and experienced person to Harrisburg, someone, as you said, that knows the ins and outs, that knows the games they play, and they play a lot of games with your tax dollars. They hide a lot of things. They try to hide a lot of things. They deceive in many ways. Someone who knows how they're doing it, can call them out on it, is willing to call them out on it. I have a record of calling them out on it. That's why, in general, they don't want me up there, and knows how to defeat them at their own game. I have a record of doing that, and in addition to a record of accomplishments. But then, as I said, I have that fairness that both sides were able to come together on legislation that I have. And I'll give you two more examples. One is, look, I often say, and I say it half jokingly, but it's really not a joke. I served in the beginning, my first term in the legislature. I served with Josh Shapiro. We served on the Judiciary Committee together, and of course, we disagreed on everything. We're ideologically mortal enemies in that respect. Even though personally, I don't have anything against him, but ideologically, we're from total opposite sides. And we beat Josh Shapiro, and we debated it very hotly on tort reform in there. And of course, that hurt him because he was paid for by the Trial Lawyers Association. So that really hurt him.
Right.
But even Josh Shapiro voted for my bills. He voted for my Good Samaritan law. He voted for my property tax reform bill. So that tells you that I am able to reach across, even to my ideological mortal enemies, and convince them through sound logic and reason. He is a lawyer by trade, so hopefully has some sound logic and reason that he can fall back on, and convince them that ideas are good. One more example I'll give you is we had at one point when Wolf first came into office, he introduced a gift ban on all the executive employees. They couldn't even take a bottle of water when they were anywhere. So it was pretty strong, and I actually applauded that. But I introduced, well, let me tell you. So we put together a committee, bicameral, Senate and House, bipartisan, Republican and Democrat. I forget how many people are on it, 20-some people maybe. Senators, Republicans, Democrats, House Republicans and Democrats. And each one of those was called the House Government Reform Committee, or it was called the Government Reform Committee, the Joint Government Reform Committee. And each one of those members was allowed to bring one bill in to see if we could get agreement on what they wanted to do jointly like this between both chambers and both parties. And many people brought up their bill, and they brought it before the committee and so forth. We all did. That committee only accepted one bill out of all of those people, Senate and Republicans, Senate and House, Republicans and Democrats. Only one bill was accepted by that committee and put forth as something that they supported. It was my gift ban bill, my government reform gift ban bill. It was the only bill out of that committee. And then the committee was disbanded. So my bill was the only one that was put forth out of that. Again, it's a testament that I was able to convince both Senate and House, Republicans and Democrats, that this was a good idea. And that's the only bill they supported in that committee. So yeah, I have the ability to reach across and do that.
Absolutely. You told me that story before, and it's really impressive. And I've actually run into those people, the advocates for that in the Capitol several times now. And they're interesting folks. And let's just go back to the presiding over the Senate for just a minute. And because I do see this as a big problem now. There's really a person who in the lieutenant governor's role now that really just doesn't understand it very well. That never understood the rules because he never served as a legislator. He was never in that body. And but you, on the other hand, have been in there, so you understand the House rules, right? You understand the Senate rules, right? You understand how a bill moves through, and you can take command of the chair. You can be fair and actually do the job competently, and that, to me, that means a lot. When you see what happens there, and you see the compare and contrast between Speaker Cutler and how he runs the House, and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman and how he does not lead the Senate, that all speaks to experience, and even though he seems to be fair, and but your record is one of fairness. I mean, your record is one where you can reach across the aisle. You can get somebody like holy crap, if you get somebody like Josh Shapiro to agree with you, that shows you have the ability to get things done. So, and I always try to tell people this, politics and being in that Capitol building, it's not all about standing on one side or standing on the other side of the issue. That's what our positions are. But we have a job to do. As a lobbyist, my job is to get pro-gun bills onto the governor's desk and sign into law, right? And so I've got to go talk to people I don't like sometimes, right? There's some Democrats I have to talk to. If I can convince them, I go and I talk to them, right? And sometimes there's Republicans that don't agree with me, or maybe not particularly like GOA or whatever. It doesn't matter. I have to put that behind me, and I have to say, I know we've had disagreements or whatever, but we really need your support on this bill. And it's not all just posturing and grandstanding. And your record in the House, in the legislature, proves that you have that. And I see that as a, when you take the president's seat in the Senate and you govern the Senate, and you run the meeting, and you run the session as the presiding officer, I mean, that knowledge and experience will come through. Right now, it's kind of who we have there now, quite frankly, is an embarrassment. So we really need to have somebody with that experience in that job. I mean, yes, Rick, thank you for bringing it up. If something would happen to the governor, God forbid, it would be you who would have to take that over. And like I said, knowledge, experience, your life experience as a diplomat, as a military officer, retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, all these things make a grand bit of difference. I always talk about your diplomacy experience in North Korea because I'm so impressed by that. We're getting close to the end, and I haven't seen too many questions that popped up here on Facebook. We had a little rough start, but just in the last few minutes, what would you like to say to the people of Pennsylvania, the Gun Owners of America, members and supporters? This is going on Facebook and YouTube, and it'll be circulated around. And I suspect many, many more people will watch it afterwards than during. So this is your opportunity to tell them, what is it about Rick Saccone? Why should you vote and support for Rick Saccone versus the other candidates?
Well, number one is I keep my promises. I kept all of my promises when I ran for the state legislature, from Castle Doctrine to property tax reform to trying to reduce the size of the legislature to privatizing liquor stores. We didn't get complete success on those things, but we got movement ahead on all those things, all of those things and more. I kept my promises, even introducing a bill on term limits, all those types of things. I kept my promises, and I will keep my promises. And I have a record to prove it. That's what distinguishes me from the other candidates. They're all going to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm pro this, I'm pro that. But I have a record that proves it, and you can go check the record, or you can go even see some of those things on my webpage. So you know that when I say I'm going to do something, I am going to work day and night, work very hard to get those things done, and I'll find a way to get them done, not by compromising our values, but by finding common ground and using sound logic and reason to persuade and convince people that this is the right thing to do, because I believe our ideas sell well. Conservative ideas will sell if they're presented properly, with good reason behind them, and firmly but fairly. And as you said, it's so important to be fair. And I think I had a good reputation when I was in Harrisburg of being a fair person. I listened to other people. When people would come and talk to me. And by the way, I always say I never traded a bill. What they do in Harrisburg is they trade bills all the time. If you vote for my bad bill, I'll vote for your bad bill. This is common in Harrisburg. I never did that in all my time in Harrisburg. I always said, vote for my bill because it has merit, and I will vote for your bill if it has merit. And if you don't think my bill has merit, come and talk to me and we'll have a discussion. And maybe I'll try to convince you, or maybe I'll change the bill. I amended my bills before because I said, you know what? People came to me and they had a good idea, and I said, you know what? I never thought of that, and it'll make it a better bill. So let's amend it. And that got people to vote for it because they said, okay, he'll listen and he'll try to make things better. So I have a reputation of doing that, and I truly believe that. It's not just for effect. I mean, I think it comes from my faith background, and I look at everyone up there. I don't look at them as enemies. I look at them as children of God, and we may disagree on things, but I always look for the good in them and try to find a way to work with people. And some people are harder than others. But I always say, if I could work with the North Koreans, I can work with Democrats, even though
what you're telling me.
Yeah. But I do have that. So if you want that fairness, and if you want things to get done, please vote for me and help me to get elected, because the establishment doesn't want me there. They want to keep their gravy train going in the way things have always been. But I will do what's right, and that's what we need right now. So if you believe in that, then help me to get elected, and I won't let you down. I will keep the promises that I made, and we'll fix this state together. We'll put it back on track, and then we can rest.
Hey, Rick, thanks. Dr. Rick Saccone, GOA's endorsed candidate for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. We got his website down here where you can support his campaign. It's rickforlg.com. Thank you for watching, and I want to encourage you to share this with your pro-gun family and friends on Facebook and other social media. Thanks a lot, folks. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless.